The foundation was really something that came out of, I looked at my son when he was 2 and I said, if I didn't know he had sickle cell disease, I wouldn't know. Just looking at him, he was at his birthday party and I realized that there was something that needed to be done because you can't tell if someone has sickle cell disease by looking at them or sickle cell trait. You have to have a test.
I've actually had a relationship with the Sickle Cell Foundation from the beginning. So a big part of what I do is take care of children with sickle cell disease. And so I met Andrea Williams many years ago in that context. And she shared with me her intense desire to do something for children and their families, you know, who are dealing with sickle cell disease.
Kids are learning to swim with sickle cell disease. It's incredible. So we take whatever the needs of the families are and we turn them into great programs by bringing community partners together to bring these programs.
I think our outreach efforts have been most valuable in going to different health fairs and things of that nature. Just really trying to get people to understand what sickle cell disease is, and just as importantly, what sickle cell disease is not.
The Children's Sickle Cell Foundation helps me a lot. The information that I'm getting from the folks here and the different programs they offer for my kids. So my kids are learning stuff and they're telling me what they learn.
It's a program where it strives, and you know, I like the way that how they bring in programs to help children and not only the families, but everybody, you know, anybody who's dealing with this kind of, you know, disease. As
a mom, I was frustrated. I wanted to do something. I didn't want anyone to walk in the same shoes that I had walked in. My husband and I were caught off guard when we learned that Jonathan had sickle cell disease because we didn't know my husband was a sickle cell trait carrier.
Sickle cell disease is an inherited disorder of the red blood cell. The job of the red blood cell is to carry oxygen from the lungs to the different tissues. And the way it does that is it's this very flexible, perfectly shaped cell, and that contains a protein called hemoglobin. And what it does is it goes into the lung and the circulation and gets oxygen from the air, and it carries it bound to the hemoglobin. And then it smoothly floats down the red blood cells, goes from large blood vessels to tiny little cells, tiny little blood vessels, and give up the oxygen and then come back to get more. The normal shape of the red blood cell is like a donut filled in, and a very soft, pliable, bendable one. And that's how it navigates little nooks and crannies in the blood vessel. This shape now becomes a sickle shape, which is an implement that, you know, decades ago people used to use for cutting grass. And it also becomes rigid, so it can't flow smoothly. It gets stuck. It causes parts of the body to not get blood. And also because it can't bend, it breaks. So it has a shorter life, and that's called anemia. Sickle cell disease originated originally in Western Africa. But people have been moving for thousands of years. And so it's not just Western Africa, it's the Middle East, it's the Mediterranean region, people from the Indian subcontinent, people from Southeast Asia, many places could be carriers of sickle cell trait.
As far as I remember, like, our family vacations have had to been always semi-spontaneous, because whenever they weren't in the hospital, we'd say, hey, let's get in the car, we're gonna go and head somewhere. It wasn't that we could plan ahead of time in weeks or months ahead, and then we could, you know, go to wherever we wanted to go.
This is an unfortunate perfect storm, and let me explain why. Number one, it's a chronic illness. So how is a chronic illness a problem? A chronic illness affects the patient and the family in multiple ways. Anybody can deal with 1 week of stress, but you add a lifetime of stress and uncertainty about what's going to happen tomorrow, it'll affect the best, most adjusted people. Okay. Did you go to the doctor when you had a sore throat? Ask them, no? That hurts? You got some glands over there. I feel for some. Okay. I'm going to touch it very gently, okay? So, no, it doesn't hurt here. It's the other arm. Just hurts?
Yeah, right there.
Okay, all right. So it's slightly swollen over there.
Both Sarah and Nariman are treated, I would say, daily for this disease. Not really treated, but just they're taking a medication called hydroxyurea just to calm them down or lower their blood level, in so they would not have lots of pain.
When I play football, tackle football, and they hit me and I land on my back, sometimes that hurts.
They're very different faces. When I look at Jonathan from his everyday, normal, not in pain, he's happy, he's delightful, he's challenging just like every other kid. But the moment he isn't being that joyful child, I tend to think something's going on. If he comes home and he's not quite himself, if he's irritable, or if he is kind of laying around, I think something's brewing. So we have to kind of talk about that.
What do you like most about swimming? What was that? Get off the ramp, Get off the ramp.
The job of childhood is to prepare for adulthood. So every time a child with sickle cell disease is in a hospital in the emergency room, you're taking a bite out of that job, that childhood job. So it's an unfinished task of childhood.
It's a disease that you don't plan for. You never know when the pain is going to strike either of them. It's very bad to have one kid with the disease. It's even worse to have two.
So the hallmark of sickle cell disease is that they present with bone-crushing pain. And you can talk to children and young adults who've had sickle cell pain, and they'll tell you it's worse than a gunshot wound pain. There are many patients who are in pain 95% of the days. So if you have pain every day, you're going to find a way to adjust your life. You're not going to be on the floor writhing in pain.
It's sharp, and it's mostly throbbing for me. And then it's usually in my back or my legs. Sometimes it's in my arms, but not that much.
I just know it's horrible looking at them and seeing how, it looks on their face. It's just really, 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 really bad. And I can't feel it, but it hurts really bad for me to see them, So I want to do everything that I can do so that they don't have to feel that.
We need people to understand how devastating this disease is and how much pain these children are in. They're in pain. Some of them are in pain every day. They're living with sickle cell pain every day. And to have to get up and go to school and fight through pain to go to school, I can't think of anything else that is more urgent right now.
How are you feeling? Are you having any pain?
No, except for in my knee.
Your elbow and your knee? Okay. What's it like when you have to come in the hospital?
Horrible.
Horrible.
And just because a disease doesn't show physical manifestations when they're healthy, it doesn't mean that it's hard to understand, or that it's hard to relay the message that they can be very sick and those physical exertions can lead to a crisis.
Knowing that your child is screaming and hurting, and it's like, you wish you could take the pain away, but you can't. You just have to stay there and watch them do it.
And no one wants to feel the pain of watching your child suffer. No one.
We want the C shape of the sickle cell, of the sickled cells, to stand for a cure and not for the pain that the disease causes.
A cure is not going to come overnight. It takes hard work. It takes brilliance. So we want the best researchers. The way we're going to get it is to raise funds from the community and from the federal government and from the states to really get involved and to say this is something that needs attention, and that hasn't been said before.
It is not a game. It is a disease. And all it does is make things worse. Sometimes it gets out of hand, out of control. You can't do anything about it. And a lot of people lose their lives over it.
If sickle cell disease research is not funded the way it should be, in a democracy, I would say it is a failure of advocacy. I know it's a strong word to use. I blame myself as much as I blame anybody else for that. And it's no longer right to merely just say, well, for 4,000 years we've been around and nobody cares, and people start something 20 years ago. Well, let's fix it. And there is a way to do that.